What's up, everyone? Phil Castro here, the founder at Kamp. We throw the best startup and VC events in the world. We go from city to city and put on these activations that are anywhere from 50 to 150 people. Typically, there's a bunch of founders and investors mingling and having a good time and building relationships. So with that being said, I also was starting a podcast about a month ago, and it's just on the 4th episode today. I'm with Henri right here, and we're about to dive into a bunch of his past, talk about VC stuff, and of course his personal life as well. So hang with me for the next 45 to 50 minutes and we will blow your mind. Henri, thank you so much for being here today. How do you officially say your name with the best accent ever? Go.
Just Henri Pierre-Jacques.
Henri Pierre-Jacques.
Yeah.
Tell me about, what is the background?
My dad's Haitian.
Ah, okay. So that's why I can't pronounce it perfectly.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of Lions call me Henry because they literally can't say
Yeah, they're like, what's up, Henry?
Yeah.
That's it. You've been in Miami for
3.5 years.
3.5 years, and you went from NYC to Miami. What's the biggest changes from NYC to Miami?
I mean, lifestyle. Like, obviously weather. I think just like the sports, like in New York, after work you would do dinner and happy hour, versus here it's paddle, tennis, boat, beach, and I think the workout culture here. And I've always been an athlete, so I actually really enjoy the Miami culture.
It's like that outside life.
It's
vibrant too, right?
So good. Now in the fall, this is the best time of the year.
Right. What is it, like November to
April,
March?
probably.
April?
Yeah,
would you
really
say?
best.
Okay, that's cool. And you had a little one recently.
Yeah, 8 months ago.
8 months ago. And I
Finally
read
sleeping through the night. It feels like a new world.
7 months. You said, right? That you started doing.
Yeah,
that?
like 2 weeks ago, you started sleeping 12 hours.
Did you wake up and do a backflip, or like how did that?
I woke up twice, freaking out.
Why is he not crying?
What happened? Even today, he slept till 8 o'clock, and we were both like, "What's going on?"
Yeah. Let's stay on that subject for a while, and how that changes your perception of time and priorities. Like all of a sudden, it's like that moment that it happens, like everything changes.
Yep.
Talk to me about like how that affected you and also your wife, like with time management.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, I'm pretty like proactive, and so we had hired a nanny for day one.
Okay.
So our nanny literally was there the day he was born.
Okay.
And that helped a lot. So like we weren't coming home, and my family lives in Michigan, so we don't have our in-laws here to like, help out, and so I really wanted to have that help. So that's really helped. I think the biggest difference is now like the weekends are family time, and so I actually like today's Friday. And Fridays, I generally don't do calls, and like for me, it's like a personal day. And I'm like, hey, the weekend is where I'll like catch up on the rest of my work because we don't have a nanny, so I have no capacity on the weekend to do anything.
Right. And
so a lot of my like social life is shifted to the week. So I see most of my friends during the week now when we have our help, and then on the weekends it's just family and like maybe do some work and catch up.
That's wild. That's like a complete
like, it used to be like, oh, like the scary Mondays. Like now it's the scary Fridays. Like now Friday comes, you're like, okay, like this is it, last hour to get ready. And Monday comes, you hand the kid over, you're like, yes, it's Monday.
So how this chat is going to go, we're going to talk about personal stuff, we're going to talk about business stuff, and it's going to be a fluid conversation, but some of it will be a little bit of a deep dive. So with that being said, Harlem Capital, talk a little bit about that just in case somebody lives under a rock and they don't know what it is yet. Tell us exactly what Harlem Capital is and the thesis.
Yeah, so we're an early stage venture capital fund, 174 million AUM, typically investing $1 to $3 million checks into early stage, call it pre-seed seed, largely focused on diverse founders, so Black, Latino men, and women of any race, across the U.S. So we've invested in 65 companies so far. We usually lead those rounds, and we typically are getting 10 to 13% ownership in those companies.
Okay, and what is the price point, did you say, that you come in at?
I would say anywhere from like 8 to 20 million.
8 to 20 million.
Yeah, post-money valuation.
Post-money valuations. Okay, cool. When you said the ownership, can you repeat that again? What is
10
it?
to 15.
10 to 15.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And is this classified as seed or Series A typically?
Pre-seed seed.
Pre-seed and seed.
Yeah,
so
we'll do follow-ons for Series A, but we don't typically do our first check.
And when you said lead, you said that word. I think a lot of people don't really understand.
Which means the largest check.
Right, but also what about
the terms.
due diligence as well?
Yeah, so we do like a long 40, 50 page memos for all of our deals.
Okay.
I come from private equity, so that's my partner as well. So that's kind of what we're used to from a diligence perspective.
Okay.
Some founders is intimidating. This week we actually gave 2 term sheets, so it's been a busy week. But I think for the best founders, like they appreciate firms that do a lot of work, particularly coming from this like 2021 bubble where people were just giving term sheets in 24 hours, and now like we're in a bear market and those same investors are nowhere to be found, right? Because they didn't put in their work. It's like a relationship where you ask somebody to marry you after a week, right? Versus like actually like getting to know them. And so I think a lot of the founders, especially the ones who work with us, they appreciate that, like by the time we make a decision, we understand there's risk, but like we still want to work with you.
What's the average due diligence time frame? Would you say 4 weeks, 6 weeks?
In today's market, bear market, yeah, probably 4 to 6 weeks.
Right.
Like in a bull market, and even today with a really good founder, hot deal, we can do 1 to 2 weeks if we have to.
Whoa. And that's only if what? They have like a deadline or something?
Yeah, like maybe somebody gave them a term sheet already, or like it's just a hot deal. There's a lot of firms on the table.
Okay, I see.
We try not to do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's just like in this market, why? Like we shouldn't have to. AI deals still are hot, so for some AI companies you may have to, but generally like 3 to 6 weeks is our like comfort zone.
Got it. And you have a bunch of, how many people work on that? I'm curious.
So there's 8 people on the team, 4 partners.
4 partners. But how many people are working on the due diligence?
So typically a partner, a junior, and we have 2 interns.
Okay.
So we have interns all year.
Walk me through the due diligence process with those people exactly. What is the intern in charge of? What is the analyst or the
Yeah,
junior?
so whoever the junior is on the team, they typically divide up the 50 slides, call it like 15, 13, 15, between them and the 2 interns.
Okay.
And the partner lets them run that. Like our juniors run the entire memo process. Like really the partner's job is legal, sourcing the deal, making sure we get our references. So typically we'll talk to other VCs, we'll talk to operators, we'll talk to customers.
Okay.
The partner's job is like make sure we get
Fact
those calls set up. Yeah. Get those calls set up, and like the juniors will take the notes and then put the notes into the memo. So I mean the memos sound long, but for a lot of firms, like they'll do a memo and then they'll have customer calls separate. Like, just like, hey, here's a bunch of Word docs. We like everything to be in one place. Like if I'm trying to get my other partners over the line, convince them to, allow me to invest in this company, I want to make it as easy as possible for them. And so we put all the notes into one deck so they can just, hey, here's a 50-page deck. You need to look at any other documents, any other links. Just download this PDF for your flight, read it, and then come to the conclusion versus our previous job. We would send like 20 notes around because you'd have like this customer call. This is like really annoying if you're on a plane.
Sounds like disorganized.
Yeah, it's not even disorganized. It's just like it's kind of the industry standard, right? Like people would just have separate notes that you tuck. And so the longer memos because we're putting all of those reference notes into one document.
Okay. And have numbers ever been off where you have to adjust the valuation or anything like that, or no? Or is that typically
if the valuation changes, it usually goes up. Because there's competition.
Right.
Yeah. So like we'll give an offer for 10 million, a couple other firms on the table, you gotta end up at 15 if you want to win.
But never the opposite though.
I think it's gone down once.
Okay.
One time.
Okay.
And that wasn't because of diligence, the round size ended up being smaller. And so we're like, hey, we made this valuation for this round size because we wanted you to have 20% dilution. It's not a $5 million round, so 25 posts, it's a $4 million round. It should be a 20 post. Yeah. Luckily, like we already signed the doc, so kind of like the founder, it was goodwill because we were like, hey, we did this because we thought this was going to be the round size, and it wasn't. And the founder agreed, like we should have a lower valuation. Why do you think that?
Why do you think there's an uproar like after the pre-post money safe came out exactly, and who is it favorable for the post?
Post money safe is better for investor, but it's better in general because you have
more clarity.
It's more clarity, right? Like. It's better for the founder if that ends up being higher than, so like if you said, hey, I'm going to raise 2 million on a 13 million pre, right, which is a 15 post, right, but you end up raising 1.5, so it's a 14.5 post, right? Now for me, so that's better for the founder because I said 15, but it would have been 14.5. So now you got a higher valuation, less dilution.
By a little bit, right?
By a little bit, right? So that's the case, but like overall, I think it's just good for both sides to know this is what the valuation is, and whether you raise 2 or 1.5, like this is my ownership, period.
Yeah, and why is that important? Because ambiguity sometimes backfires.
Yeah, well, the fund model is based on ownership, and so it's like, hey, if I'm giving you a $1.5 million check at a 15 post for 10%, like I want to know I'm getting 10%. But if it's a pre-money and now you win and raise $7 million into 20 posts, my 10% now is 7%. Like that changes my entire dynamics of my fund model. Right.
Talk about, while we're on the subject, talk about the power of law, meaning like we have...
The outliers?
Yeah. Talk about the outliers and how that works exactly. And actually use real numbers, like maybe if you can't...
So 100 companies, right? 3% of companies become unicorns.
Sure.
Right, so you invest in 100 companies, 3 of them will become unicorns. No fund, most 99% of funds don't invest in 100 companies. Right, so the reality is like your hit rate has to be higher than 3% because if you're investing in 33 companies, then that 3% is one company.
Most of them only get like 20, 25 at bat, right?
I would say now 30 to 45.
30 to 45 at bat.
You need more diversity, particularly in this market. As the Series A and Series B has become harder, you need more deals because conversion ratios have dropped.
Okay.
Right. So in the 2021 bubble, let's say there was a 40% seed to Series A conversion. So you invest in 10 companies, 4 of your companies are reaching a Series A. Today, that's 10%. You invest in 10 companies, 1 company is reaching a Series A.
And how about your portfolio? How's that doing?
We're roughly 40%.
You're roughly 40%.
Yeah.
And how would you judge the success of your portfolio, would you say?
Ultimately,
MOIC? Is it IRR? Is it what you just said?
Ultimately, all that matters is DPI, which is money, cash you get back to LPs.
Yep.
Which is not until year 7, 8, 9,
Yeah,
10.
you have a long time for that.
Right.
2000.
Our first one was 2019. So like by 2030,
okay.
we'd hopefully it would be, in the carry. So we'd be
Right.
10x.
Yeah.
But yes, in the interim, yes, the MOIC, the TVPI is what matters.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, we've realized that a lot of that was just fake, right? And that's all coming down as the market's correct.
When'd you realize that?
Everybody realized it, right? After the 21 bubble, the valuations were just too high,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of companies just aren't going to survive,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think what matters now is can you return capital back to LPs?
Mm-hmm.
For us, we weren't in a position to do that because our fund was raised in 2019. So our companies were only 2 years old when the 2021 window happened.
Mm-hmm.
If you were a 2016 fund, 5 years old, it's 2021, and you didn't get liquidity, LPs are pissed. Because it was the greatest liquidity window of our generation.
Yeah, and talk to me about how investment strategies change from year 2 of the fund to year 7 or 8 of the fund. How's the dynamic shift?
To some extent, you probably become slightly more conservative, right? Early on, you take more risk.
Yeah.
Over time, you learn more and more about venture, and you probably start to become more and more in the venture box. There's pros and cons to that, and you had some companies that failed in a certain sector. It's not
jaded.
Yeah, you're jaded. You have a bias, and for us, we did a lot of wellness in Fund 1, and you think about the Calms, the Headspaces, none of them went public. They're doing fine, but there was no returns, right? And so for the wellness space, a lot of the companies just failed, and so now when we see wellness, we're jaded. A great founder who's building a wellness, maybe we make that bet if there's a different industry because hey, bet on the founder.
Right.
But now because we've been jaded, so I think there's pros and cons, and I think we reflect on that, and the question becomes how long do you allow that jadedness to perceive your perception? I know this won't work, and that's just not true, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the best companies ever created were companies that didn't work before.
There's probably a lot of people that try and get you to come on podcasts or come to the events. You probably have to say no to a lot.
Especially now as a father.
Why are you coming back to me right now?
You're just good people. We engage on Twitter. You're very active.
Cheers to that, brother.
Cheers to that.
I appreciate you coming back.
Of course.
So what makes a great founder a great founder? And you talk to many of them. So what is the characteristics from a personality standpoint to what they do with business to even something that's random that you've noticed?
Yeah, our new slogan internally is all winners welcome. And so we've always said winners win, and winners want to be around other winners, right? And so I think that's for winners, it's are you surrounding yourself with people who are better than you? Whether that's you're going to certain schools, certain companies, you're learning in classes, people who are coding on the side, whatever it is. I want to see people who don't want to be the best person in the room. Mm-hmm. I want to see people. For me personally, I'm a quant person. Math is always my favorite subject. I like founders that love data. They don't run from it when their metrics are off. They're not hiding it. The worst founders, you start to see the monthly emails get shorter. Yeah. They start to pull the KPIs out because they want to hide from the numbers.
Right.
I want founders who love the numbers, they obsess over it when they're not going well.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to figure out how they adjust the numbers. Because data drives decisions. It's one of our core values.
Sure.
It doesn't mean there's a gut instinct for VC. There's a gut instinct for founders. So you need to listen to your gut to make strategic decisions. But as you get further along, are you actually listening to the data, or are you just listening to yourself?
Well, gut comes from intuition, and intuition comes from data points.
Yeah.
Even
over time,
behavior.
Yeah. It's even data points from previous gut decisions.
Right.
Right. And so I like founders who which isn't true for all the partners. Each partner on our team has different. And I would say I'm probably the most founder-driven partner. I like certain themes. I don't like consumer deals.
Okay.
But the stuff that I do I usually will choose the founder over anything else. I believe that people drive outlier outcomes.
People, product, processes.
Performance. That's it. You see, you follow Twitter.
A little bit.
The 4 Ps.
I try to. I do love the dad jokes and all the political craziness.
Yeah.
It's funny to me, but of course I try and follow the startup VC Twitter.
Yeah. That's where it started before X, and now it's not the same.
Who's your favorite account to follow and why? On Twitter.
favorite.
It could be just because they provide so much insight, or it just makes you giggle in the morning when you wake up and you open it up.
I actually really like Kamp.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just I'm a big sports head.
Okay.
And I actually love I like data in sports, and so like all the metrics he says, like the viewership for Caitlin Clark, whatever it was, 10% of Japan watched the World Series. I think it's like really cool, and definitely he has like a very unique lane compared to like the rest of Twitter.
He came
and
to
he's South Florida too.
He came to a couple of our events, spoken at a couple of our events. Good dude. What's your favorite genre of music, and has that shifted over the years, the past 5-10 years?
It's been hip hop my whole life.
Me too. But has it shifted?
Like, no, hip hop's number one. Number two was never reggaeton in Time Roots Miami. Okay. Reggaeton is number 2 now.
Oh, okay. What is your favorite hip hop artist?
Favorite hip hop artist? Drake.
Drake.
Close.
What about number 2? Because Drake is an easy answer. So.
I mean, after Kendrick, not an easy answer, but I'll still see Drake over Kendrick all day.
You think Kendrick smoked Drake in that?
He won, for sure. He won the battle, but
I would like
Drake
to argue about that. We'll save that for a different conversation.
He definitely won. Like even as an avid on Spotify, I'm 0.3% Drake listener. Kendrick won, but he should. He's a lyricist. It's like, I'm from Detroit. Nobody's going to be Eminem in a battle. Yeah. It doesn't matter who
you're going to say
that. And you should. And Eminem should win, and Kendrick should have won.
Sure.
I mean, my top 3 pretty consistently have been Drake, Kanye, J. Cole.
Okay. Yeah, what about if you had a karaoke right now, like go somewhere, like what would be your song? Would it be a Drake song or something different?
I mean, it probably would be a Drake song, but I don't like karaoke.
So I'm sure you have a horrible voice. I could already assume
I don't even know what song would be.
Bad at karaoke.
Yeah, like it would probably be Drake, but I don't even know what song it would be.
Over?
Yeah, I don't even know. But like, yeah, those top 3. But Kendrick, he's good too. I just don't listen to him as much.
So we both took our first Waymo 2 or 3 months ago. I think yours was in San Francisco.
Yeah, that's that.
What did you think about that experience? And this is going to lead to a different question regarding AI.
It was incredible.
How was your experience?
I took it to the meeting. On the way back, I wanted to take it, and it was too long of a wait, so I took a regular Uber. So having that back-to-back experience was like really showed the difference.
I bet.
It was like, I had my own music, and the windows were up, and it was like sound. I could talk on my phone. Then I get into the Uber on the way back to the meeting. The guy's blasting radio. His window's down. The car is dirty.
Telling you he has side hustles.
Yeah, I was like, man, like this really shows me why I like the Waymo. Like their wait times are too long. They don't go on the highway yet, so you can't go to the airport. I was just in SF 2 days ago. Okay. And you can't go on the highway, so you can't go to the airport. So I mean, there's a lot to be done. But in the city, like Waymo is superior, and it was actually funny enough. The podcast this morning for the Wall Street Journal was about the Waymo. Okay. And they were talking about like how that's changed dramatically the past 3 years from like perception, like how people view it. For sure. Because like people hated it. For sure. And now like people love it.
Yeah, I see that.
And some people won't. Like my partners, we were in SF, they wouldn't.
They don't want to do it. Yeah, they're like, no. They don't want to do it. It's only in like 4 or 5 markets. You know that, right?
Yeah. It's like Phoenix are going to Atlanta next.
Are they? They announced that?
Yeah, they announced it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know they had it in Phoenix. I know they had it in San Francisco.
I think they're in LA.
Yeah, there's 1 or 2 more. Yeah. Wasn't that many?
Yeah, not many.
Okay, so going off of the AI thing now, what do you think the downsides and the upsides to AI currently, and what is it going to be in a couple of years? Like for instance, AI is probably going to help with a lot of jobs that
you don't want to do. I mean, I think the greatest AI accomplishment will be healthcare. Okay. Like by far, I think if you can find cancer early, you can remove all of the biases like that people go through, especially people of color, for pregnancy, whatever it may be. I think that's going to be. I think that will. I mean, literally save lives. I think there'll be no greater creation in that. Yeah. I think the downside, the opposite, will be taking lives. It'll be war. Like it's inevitable, right? Whether you want to name the American country that people like to hate on, Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, like AI is going to go across the world, and you already see the East-West divide. And as you get supercomputers, and China just launched their spaceship yesterday, like there's a race to space, like. I think that's going to be where you see destruction. Like, now you have genocide with guns, or you've got the war in Gaza. Like, you put that on top of, like, these drones with AI, with this. I mean, you can just get massive destruction in Putin's hand or anybody's hand. So I think saving lives and I think taking lives would be the 2 worst. And everything else in between, productivity, use your Excel file faster, reply less emails, will be good. Yeah. It's helpful, but I think on like a global scale, less impactful in life.
Right. And that stuff I feel like is mostly here. I mean, not all of it for sure, but a lot of it is here right now. It's like who's adopting it.
It's not like the greatest interfaces for all this stuff. Yeah. You got to like go to like a bunch of different tools for different things. Kind of like early Web3. It's like it's better, but this isn't like helpful for most consumers. Yeah. But it'll get there. I mean, I think the amount of money going into it is probably too much. It's the $600 billion question people are asking.
Mm-hmm.
But like ultimately, there will be a winner, and that winner is going to make trillions of dollars.
Okay. Okay.
So it's probably worth it.
If you had to pick your top 3 founders, and I will after you, like a dream team, who would you pick?
Like who I've invested, or who are just like who I like to follow.
They can't be like who you invested.
Yeah, I mean, I don't choose my children.
Because I know that you're not going to, especially if we're taping this right now. But like you're like an all-time favorite founders in history or whatever. Like who would be your top 3 dream team?
I mean, it's funny because a lot of the founders who I respect and follow are like GP founders. Right?
Really?
Yeah, like Warren Buffett, Henry Kravis, like those guys are the ones who I've always looked up to my whole life. Because I never worked in venture, I never worked at a startup, I never been an operator. So like I've been an investor like my whole career, and so I've admired how these people have built these multi-thousand firms and multi-hundred billion AUM firms. Like those have been the people who like I've looked up to.
Yeah.
Like I mean, the easy answers are like the Elons and stuff of the world. Like I just aren't people who I've never been in the valley.
Yeah,
so
you don't like Elon.
Yeah, I don't like Elon for a variety of reasons. I think he's really smart. So yeah, I'd say the GPs. Like Warren Buffett is the person who I would spend the most money on to have dinner with, by far.
Okay. What was your favorite book that you read in the past 6 months?
I don't read a lot of books.
What do you
The
listen
last
to
6
podcasts?
months, yeah, I listen to 20 podcasts a day.
Oh, really? So that's what you do?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I
I'm like
didn't have time to read books before. I definitely don't have time to read books now.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get bored.
You get bored?
Yeah, I'm an extrovert. I can't sit in the room for 30 minutes and quiet.
Couldn't tell.
I'll watch TV with a podcast on the phone while I'm on emails. I don't like quiet.
Wife, introvert or extrovert?
Introvert. She's an executive coach.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have headphones for all my TVs.
Yeah, so I feel like we're like pretty much the same. Like I'm like that as well. You like that. Our wives are like that. Do you think that that's like a dynamic? Like
opposites attract.
You think so?
But it's not like, it doesn't have to be the case. I have friends who are extroverts, introverts. But I think it's a nice balance. She calms me, I excite her. So
Let me ask you a deeper question. Do you believe in fate?
in faith? Yeah.
Fate.
Christian.
No, fate, not faith.
Oh, fate.
Fate.
I was like, definitely believe in faith.
Yeah, I know. Churchgoer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Praise the Lord. Christian?
Faith.
Baptist?
Yeah, Christian.
Christian?
Christian, yeah.
So are Haitians usually Christian? I don't even know this.
Catholic. Yeah.
Catholic. Okay. Anyway, back to
I'm
my
not
question.
that much. Fate, yes. Do I believe like every person has one person they're supposed to marry? I wouldn't go that far.
Okay.
Like I think they're right people who could be happy with.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the way we met, my wife and I have the same birthday, 3 years apart.
That's strange.
Like there's some fate to that for sure.
Mm-hmm. And where did you guys meet, Curious?
We met in New York at a rooftop bar.
Oh, cool.
9.5 years ago.
Which one? Is it still open?
PhD in Chelsea.
Is that one still open?
Yeah,
I've heard of
still
it,
open.
but I don't know if it's still open.
Yeah, it's still open.
What's
It's
your
at the Dream Hotel.
Okay, Dream Hotel.
They're opening a Dream Hotel in downtown.
Those are the Towel Group people, I think.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Friends of that
the
dude,
best
great
parties.
dude. What is your yesterday was Halloween. You didn't dress up, did you?
I did.
You did.
Yeah, we were the Scooby-Doo, Velma, Fred.
And little one was
You're Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
That's so cute. And you had all the trick-or-treaters come?
We are like in a neighborhood of 3 buildings, and the building lobbies all did like stuff for the kids.
Oh,
like,
okay.
pumpkin carving. And
Okay.
it was cool. I mean, we ate all the candy because he eat candy, obviously.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was like kind of looking at them. Like,
Yeah.
But
So
we're
we're like,
ready.
oh, we're grabbing this for our son. And
Yeah, they're all the good ones too, like the Reese's cups, all the like the top tier ones.
Skittles.
What's your favorite restaurant in Miami? Like, where do you keep going back to?
For vibes or for food?
For vibe first, and then food second.
Vibes, Chodomate or Casadana. Food, Uchi.
Okay, what was the first one?
Chodomate.
That's what I thought you said. Is that a
Peruvian fusion with Japanese on South
fusion.
Beach.
Brickell or no?
South Beach.
South Beach.
Yeah, Lincoln now, Lincoln.
Who do you respect as an investor outside like Harlem Capital? Like, who's something you look up to? Not from the Warren Buffett standpoint, but just like
Yeah, like
even
close.
like close.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Koppelman is one of our mentors and LPs.
Okay.
He's the founder of First Round.
Okay.
And yeah, I respect him a lot. They chose Uber, Roblox, Twitter, Square. He's had a bunch of winners. He's invested in a bunch of other GPs. He's given back.
What does he taught you?
He taught us a lot about like actual like model, like hey, here's the fund model. He taught us about like what you should look for in a founder. Like he has a big belief in like a founder has to spike in something. Like you have to be like he's always like, what is that? What's the one thing this founder spikes at?
Spikes in something.
Like extremely
Something.
your top 1%
Of
of
something,
one
yeah.
thing of something.
And what in your experience, name some of those spikes that you've encountered.
Like
Like maybe
one of my best founders right now is like an incredible salesperson. Like
salesperson.
like came from the industry and understands the customer deeply,
Okay.
and can just sell. I mean, it's really hard when you're pre-seed, right? Like, you've got nothing. You're trying to convince somebody to give you $40,000.
Yeah.
It's like it takes a certain type of person.
Yeah.
I have another founder who's just incredible with higher talent.
Higher talent.
Like, can just.
Is there any non-obvious spikes though? Because those two I feel like are obvious. If you can do sales,
I mean, those are the ones that obviously lead to the outlier winners.
Of course.
I mean, there's the like go against the grain, like a founder. I think about like some of our best founders who got through COVID, and just like, I mean, they gambled, like took big risks, and they kind of like they just went with like, hey, I just believe in myself, and that takes, you know, there's a level of humility. Like, I want a founder who believes in himself, but at a certain time, you also have to listen to, like, I've invested in 60 companies, I've seen 14,000. There's certain things I know that you don't know.
Yeah.
And there's like a balance between when founders should listen to their insights and then listen to their board. Some founders don't do that. They listen to their insights all the time, and that's like really frustrating.
I wonder what that balance should be about. Should it be like 70-30?
Probably, yeah.
Somewhere around there?
I mean, we always tell our founders, like, hey, we're going to always tell you our advice. You got other investors on the table. I never expect you to listen to me all the time. Like, I'm not investing you to be my mini-me.
Of course.
I'm investing you because I believe in your decision-making abilities.
Sure.
But, like, there are certain big decisions where I'm obviously going to, like, put my foot down.
Yeah, I mean, if you're smart investors and you're not dumb money, you're smart money, you have a lot to weigh in about.
And then sometimes you let them learn from the mistakes, and then they come back. I had a founder, like, 2 months ago. We told him something, he came back, he was like, yeah, you were right. Like, and that, you know, that's, and then now, like, when we say something, they listen.
They listen a little bit better.
So I was like, I told you so. I was like, I literally said it. I was like, I promise you, in 3 to 4 months, you're gonna be wrong. Like, I hope you prove me wrong, but usually it's not the case.
Right. Talk about a board meeting and how it's ran efficiently.
You just had one in SF. So this one was at the Series A lead investors office.
Right.
So I think in person once or twice a year.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Virtuals.
Not 4. Somebody wanted to do 4. I was like, absolutely not.
So twice a year in person, maybe 4
2
virtuals.
Yeah, 2 virtuals.
2 virtuals.
4 total. You don't need 4 in person meetings. It's too much.
How about in the beginning though? In the
no, still too much.
Still
I mean, like if you're like in SF and your lead investors there, fine. Like we have a company with the leads in Boston there.
Because it's convenience.
It's convenient. But like getting on a flight to fly 6 hours 4 times a year for one company and I have 20-some companies, not happening.
Yeah. It's a lot for sure.
It's a lot. It's easy for like Series A growth firms to do 2 deals a year.
Yeah.
For C, that's not our model.
All right, so going back to...
it's like best board meetings, usually you're trying to answer 3 questions. Like you have the deck, it's a 30, 40-page deck, it has all the KPIs, but like the 3 questions have 6 to 10 slides total. So each question is 2 to 3 slides, and like that's the fact, like, hey, here's a question I have, I'm trying to answer this question, here's like 2 slides of data, here's my hypothesis, here's the questions I'm asking. I'm looking for like a discussion each of those questions. Typically, like for this board meeting, we had 2 questions, and those were like an hour and a half the board.
Okay.
Right. It's like the most should be focused on like what are the 3 things that you as a founder think will change your business the most, and you can't answer them for whatever reason by yourself. All the like KPI, and we'll leave 30 minutes for like, hey, why did this happen? Let's look at your sales conversion funnel, all other KPI stuff. But like that shouldn't be the board meeting. That's not insightful. We do monthly calls with all of our founders. So on our monthly calls, we talk about the data.
Yeah, it's already there.
The board meeting is for like the nitty gritty, and then the dinner is like really important as well. Like we had a great dinner, and we always do a dinner or lunch. Sometimes we do like an activity, golfing, bowling, like to like build the personal relationship.
Do you talk about business mostly at the dinners or bowling?
Sometimes, but like this dinner was at a Michelin Indian restaurant, which is pretty good, and we're in SF. I think it's called Rasa. It's in like near the airport.
Okay.
And like 90% of the conversation was about just like life.
Whatever.
Yeah, because like you want, especially as you go to the Series A and the Series B, as a C lead, I want my founder to get as close to those people as possible, because when markets are tough like now, and these Series A leads are choosing who to do the follow on for, who to like push, like you need to build that relationship. It's a lot easier to build a relationship early on, right? Because early on, it's all about people, right? As there's data, it becomes less and less about people. Yes, like the founder matters, but like at some point, Series B, Series C company, a good company can replace the CEO. Now, like the great CEOs, you can't replace Elon and others, etc. But for most CEOs, they can be replaced. And 60% of CEOs are replaced with Series B.
So with pro rata rights, that means that the investor gets the opportunity to come on in the subsequent round to have the same ownership. When do you not exercise that and why?
We do it through the Series A and then we stop.
No, I'm saying when have you not, for whatever reason, and why?
The founder doesn't listen. So back to the point of the humility, it's like, there's not a relationship. I don't trust your decision-making abilities anymore.
Is that communicated between you two?
Yeah. I mean, the founders, there's like moments where you get into arguments and similar to a spouse and you take a step back and like, hey, like,
sorry about
heat
that.
a moment, whatever. And then the founder, you apologize. I think it's like where it keeps happening, or where the founder retreats, right? Fight or flight. And the best founders fight, the worst founders flight.
So let's say that there is ongoing arguments, they're just really hard to work with. You do have pro rata rights. Does that mean you're not going to exercise it, even if the company's doing good, just because you don't get along with the founder?
Yeah.
You've done that before?
Yeah, I've done that before.
It's nuts.
Do
you see that?
Because you can...
Going up to the right, and you're
basically it's like, yeah, but I don't believe that it's sustainable.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, yeah, you got this round done. But like I think long term, medium term, like something's gonna happen. If there's a secondary sell, I'd probably sell. Yeah. It's like once you don't believe in the founder, especially as a seed investor.
Yeah, but it's not that you don't believe in a founder. It's you don't believe in your relationship with the founder.
But that means I don't believe in the founder.
You think so?
Yeah. It's like I don't believe in a relationship with my wife. That means I don't believe I don't want to be married to you anymore.
Yeah, but they might be successful without you.
That's fine. And you get divorced and you get remarried. So like.
What?
You can be successful with somebody else.
If you go back to your, how long have you been investing? How many years?
Like VC, seven, 8.
How many angel?
Angel investments, we did like 12.
Okay.
And investments, 65.
The biggest differences between angel and VC?
I mean, the outcomes have to be way larger.
Right, but what else? Everyone knows that.
Way more diligence.
There you go, diligence. What else?
I mean, it's a different criteria. You don't invest in the same things. Like, you can't make. I don't know if it's better or worse. Mm-hmm. Time will tell. But you can't just do as many founder bets.
Yeah.
Which also, some people do that, right? Founders Fund is obviously very founder friendly.
Yeah.
But I think now, like for us, like market matters a lot. Business traction matters a lot. Differentiation. What's your moat? Mm-hmm. When you're angel investing, you do some of that work, but like ultimately, like you're like, hey, I really believe in this person. I've known them. Whatever. I'm backing the person. And so that's actually, it's fun, right? And I am more founder focused, but I still have to like look at the market and the business and the moat and all the differentiation stuff too.
Yeah. What's a good moat? You said moat. What's a good example of a great moat?
I mean, it's not always like technical, and especially with AI, it's not going to ever be technical anymore because you can do whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
So oftentimes just like unique insights. Like, you know how like whatever the wedge is to the company, and then you can build the moat around it. So we just gave a term sheet yesterday to a company. And basically like the wedge in is not, there's no moat, like anybody can do it. But then like the wall he's building once again is actually really strong. It's like, hey, every month here's a product we're building because he understands that customer. And he's like, yeah, there's no moat here because this is the easiest sales cycle. Mm-hmm. People are buying our products literally in 1 week because it is so obvious they should buy it. And then after they buy it, I add stuff. And then by the time the other person comes in with the same product and saying, hey, like, I can do this for you cheaper. Like, oh, that's interesting. Can you do all the rest of this stuff as well? I'm like, oh, no, I can do this for you cheaper. I can't do that. They're like, actually, I'll just keep paying more for this because it's so much of my business. Yeah. Like, insights like that are more of like where the moat comes than like, we don't invest in biotech. Like, we don't invest in deep tech. There's not going to be technical moats for most of these things that we're investing in. It's really around like, oh, you understand the customer so deeply that like, oh, I see, like, and we do customer calls, and they're like, yeah, like, it would be a lot. Like, some of our customer calls, they say, I'll pay them 2 or 3 times more. For this company in particular, they say, I'd pay them 3 times more. Mm-hmm. Like, that's how much they love the product.
When you, let's go back to your life growing up, how did that look like, and did it have anything to do with anything that you do today? Startups, venture capital, equity, etc.
So, only child, grew up in Detroit, Michigan. Dad's Haitian, mom's African American. Mm-hmm. Parents were both doctors, so like as a Haitian in particular, getting pushed to the doctor path because all my uncles, they're all doctors.
Yeah.
But I hated blood. I hated school, so I was like, I'm not doing that.
Shouldn't have kids. You're about to have a lot of blood and a lot of school for the next whatever how many years.
I'm not in it, so that's fine. And yeah, I always loved math. Like I was like really good at math since first grade. I started trading stocks when I was in middle school, so I loved money. I remember I used to get set like weekly chores. I would get paid, and I would convert some of my money to like pennies. And I would create these like penny towns in our living room. I had like all these like little penny stacks of towns. I just love playing with money. Mm-hmm. Always. My mom was like, "You love money." I was like, "I always have." So I mean, early on, I knew I wanted to do business, and we went on a ski trip, and I went to go on this black diamond with my dad, and he was like, "I'm not going down that. Like, I don't want to like hurt my wrists." I thought, "You're being a wussy." He's like, "No, like this is how we go on these trips. Like my hands are literally how we pay for stuff. So like he couldn't risk getting injured." And I was like, "That's interesting." I was like, I don't want to have a job where like
you're reliant on that.
Yeah. So then I was like, I want to make money while I'm sleeping, and finance kind of just made sense.
Okay. And that came back later on in college. You went to
college at
Northwestern, right?
Northwestern
Chicago
for college. Chicago.
4 years.
Big Ten. 4 years.
Yep.
Did Goldman my sophomore year.
You're from Chicago, right?
You from Chicago? Oh, nice.
Got the whole tattoo, the Jordan, and all that.
Okay.
Pretty.
LeBron's the best, but I'll give you.
You're wrong. We could say that for another argument. Yeah, but going back to the Chicago thing, so you went for 4 years, Northwestern, political science.
Econ political science.
Yeah, econ political science.
Yeah.
And have you used a lot of the degree or a little?
No, not at all.
Zero.
I mean, like that's the whole Gen Z argument. Like college, academic wise, is useless unless you're whatever pre-med or engineer. But like where the value is you growing up, becoming an adult, the clubs I managed, the things I did, the friendships you make. I would still send my kids to college, even though it's ridiculously expensive, because it gives you access.
Yeah.
Right? Ultimately,
and experience.
Experience. Everything in life is a people's business, as my old boss would say. And college and business school even more so. The people you meet can change your life.
Do you have any regrets in life?
Do I have any regrets? I don't live life with regrets.
Yeah, no regrets? Tattooed right there?
I don't live life with regrets. I think everything in like fate, I think everything in life happens for a reason.
Okay. Even the bad of the bad.
Yeah. I mean, you can't have testimony without, like, as a person of faith, you can't have testimony without test. It's like whether obviously like death is hard, but like all other things, you didn't get into the school, you didn't get this job, like that's part of your journey. If God closes one door, he opens another. So I don't have regrets. I mean, there were moments where it's like, oh, I didn't get into school, or there were certain internships I didn't get, or I didn't get like certain jobs, and they actually ended up being the best thing for me to ever happen. I just didn't know at the time.
Yeah, but 2 years later you find out.
Yeah. So like, I mean, obviously like it's easy to say that in retrospect because like I have a really privileged life.
Yep.
Maybe if I had a bad life, I would say I regret these decisions I made, but like, fortunately, I don't regret the decisions I made.
So you grew up with some privilege then, because you have
parents are doctors.
Yeah, I was about to say 2 doctors.
My HBS essay, my parents both went to Harvard Med. That's where they met. Was that my dad grew up in Haiti, my mom grew up in Detroit. So Detroit was the poorest city in the country in the 60s. Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. They meet at Harvard for med school.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, if my parents can grow up in the poorest city in the country and go to Harvard, then like I had privilege, like I have to go to Harvard. Like there's no excuse. That's kind of like my mentality I've always had is like worth that privilege. And I went to private school my whole life, and a lot of my friends ended up in very different places, some successful, some not. But I always felt like, okay, if my parents can do it, then like there's no reason I can't.
When did the auto industry go down the drain in Detroit? Was it the late 80s? Do you remember? I'm wondering if your mom got to do that or not.
Yeah, I mean, the fire burns in Detroit, civil rights era, all that stuff. Yeah, the 08 crisis was bad. Like yeah, she's been there. She's still there. And she's been there her whole life.
Oh.
And she only left for med school and residency when we were in New York for 3 years. We moved back to Detroit because my mom's from Detroit. That's why we moved back.
Oh, okay. Horrible weather. Horrible football team too.
5-1. 5-1. Big game. Packers.
So real estate is an interesting topic because I was going to ask you a question. I was going to say, what is your most controversial take? And maybe you have 1, 2, or 3, but I know you have at least one of them that matches mine, which is
you should rent.
You should
don't
rent.
Own.
Don't own.
Which like is becoming less controversial.
I feel like it still is.
As people, I mean, the American dream is homeownership. So I think there's something to be said about building a home. There's like an emotional attachment.
Stake in the ground.
Stake in the ground. Now that we have kids, like you can't get kicked out. You can like custom build the stuff you want for your family. But like on a pure financial basis, I think it's a really hard argument for most people to win.
Yeah.
And you have to live there for 10 years, and most millennials don't want to live anywhere for 10 years. Like very few homes, like yes, there's these short windows like COVID where home prices doubled in 5 years, which never happens. Like in any cycle.
Especially South Florida.
Yeah, South Florida, Nashville, there's a number, and a lot of those markets are compressing. South Florida is compressing. So there was these windows where like that was not true, where you could own, but on a normal basis, you have to own for 7 to 10 years to make real money. And I just think most people our age don't know where they want to live for that long.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like also like just like the whole down payment and time management, it's like it's crazy.
S&P was up 20% last year, 15% this year. that $150K down payment, you made $45,000 last year, another $30,000 this year. I mean,
I will say
that's my full year rent.
Most Americans still want to own a home, especially like in their 20s.
What's the greatest asset?
Right, but why do they think that way, and why can't they get out of that mindset? Though I'm curious what your thought process behind that is.
Well, it's the big shiny object.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's been talking about it forever. It's like why do women want diamond rings when diamonds are invaluable?
And the boomers are telling their kids all this stuff.
Yeah, and you see it all the time. And you grew up in a home, right? You know it. Like when my parents got divorced, and like when we got rid of my childhood home, like it sucked. Like you're going home for Christmas, Thanksgiving, like you want that, right? Because you had it. So I think that like the memories make you want to have that. And I think for a lot of people, home ownership is success. Mm-hmm. Right, it's the white picket fence with the kids and the wife and the husband, and like that's what life is about.
What's success to you?
Success to me, well, you build a legacy and you have time. Like wealth for me is time. Mm-hmm. Like just do whatever you want, and I don't think you need a lot. I think moving to Miami, why I like Miami, mm-hmm. and it gets you to realize that you can live life so much earlier, versus before I was like, oh, I'm gonna be in New York, I'm gonna do finance, I'm gonna hustle. When I'm 50, 60, I'll go somewhere and like chill. It's like, no, you can do it now. Yeah. You can literally, I played paddle this morning. You can play paddle, do a podcast, and then do some work, and go to the birthday dinner, and then do some more work on the week. Like, you can figure out when you want to do it. And what I appreciate about Miami mm-hmm. is it's a very entrepreneur city. Okay. I've never met as many founders, not like tech founders. This is like in general hustlers, like brokers. One of my friends sells custom-made flags. My other friend sells furniture as like a middleman distribution. These are all like millionaires between 25 and 35. Okay. And it's like you would never meet these people in New York. Right. New York, it's finance, fashion, whatever, tech now as well. But like here, it's like all these people doing unique stuff, and people may, yes, Miami's flashy, and people are using credit versus debit for some of their purchases.
And Bitcoin, a lot of Bitcoin.
But like it is really inspiring just to see like that many people just doing whatever they want and not like following the system. Yeah. And that's like been really refreshing for me, and it's hard for me now to want to go back to New York. So I'm like, I like play paddle at 10 a.m. on Friday or 10 to 11 a.m. on Wednesday because everybody else I know can do that. If I go back to New York, my friend's like, oh, I can play 6 a.m. or I can play at 8 p.m.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, 8 p.m. is too late. My kid's in bed. I'm at home. 6 a.m. is too freaking early. I'm not working before my kid gets up. Uh-huh. Right? So I appreciate like I have friends here where like we can choose our schedules.
So work-life balance meant something different to you 10 years ago versus it is now today.
Yeah, I mean, so when I was in finance in New York, I definitely saw a balance and worked out every day. Mm-hmm. And I got a lot of crap from my like staff in banking as your staffer. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I have to work out. You can lower my bonus if you want. Yeah. But like, I'm not gonna like just not take
not negotiable.
Yeah, and I've always been that way. I've been hard-headed. Yeah. My mom used to call me that, and stubborn. That's why I'm a founder too. Cool. But yeah, so I always had my own like as much work-life balance as you could have in investment banking, working 100 hours a week. Mm-hmm. But like, yeah, now that I have my own firm and I live in Miami. And I have a child, I do whatever I want, whenever I want. I still get my stuff done, but it's on my own time. And my team knows it. My work calendar has all my blocks. They know when I play tennis, they know when I'm doing this, and like they know, hey, get the pages to me before this point, or I'm gonna see you tomorrow. Right, right. And that's that. And like it hasn't inhibited any productivity. Right. At all. It only enhances you because like you have to get better and faster because you have less time. Yep. Which goes back to it's like for workouts. Like I do my workouts 30, 45 minutes unless I'm playing sports. All my friends are like, how can you lift weights that fast? I'm like, because I have 30 minutes. I don't take any breaks. I just crush it. Versus you guys are talking, you're texting on your phone, chatting with the girl next to you. I don't have time for that.
So we have very similar views on the hip hop music, on real estate.
We don't agree on who's the best or who won the battle.
but it's.
It's similar. Yes, we agree on the top 2 basketball players, the top 2 hip hop artists. Yes, and so we're close.
Right. And another thing that I think we agree on is EAs. Executive assistants. Why? Because why? Why do you?
Because it's time.
Right. And what do they do?
And mine's virtual, so I don't spend a lot of money. Okay. I don't believe in-person EAs making 6 figures. Okay. Funny, the board I went to this week, he asked for my EA because he has an in-person EA in San Francisco making $150. I'm paying $150 for you to send emails and schedule meetings. I'm like, yeah, use my EA in freaking Philippines for $40,000. Yeah. And she's incredible. She's been over us for 2.5 years, life-changing, money in the Philippines. She went to a Taylor Swift concert in Japan.
I bet.
Right, like so.
That's crazy money out there.
Crazy, right?
You been there?
So
you been there?
I have, in Japan. Not since like the deflation.
Okay.
I want to go, but now my kids,
You're very tall for out there. Because I was very tall for out there. You're taller than me.
Yeah, like a basketball player.
They look like a freak. Like I always felt like a freak. Like, you're like what, 6'3" or something?
No, I'm just 6.
6? Okay.
Yeah, it's got big guy energy.
Oh, okay. That must be it. You got the big guy energy. What is your favorite place to visit? If you have to go somewhere, like, what are you like, ooh, yes, can't wait to go to?
I mean, a lot of countries. There's so many different reasons. I lived in Paris for a little bit, so Paris is just Paris. Mm-hmm. I would say Europe, best place for me is Barcelona.
Love Barcelona. I want to
go there for a whole summer.
Yeah.
Barca is Miami of Europe.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I love Barca.
Why? Because people are just drinking wine happy in the middle of the street at like 4 p.m.
It's just a lifestyle. Like, people, you can speak Spanish, they're not judging you. Yep. Good energy. Yeah. Like, you can travel anywhere in Europe in 3.5 hours, similar to Miami. Mm-hmm. I love Mexico City. Yeah. Definitely top 5. It's probably top 2.
What do you dread going to? Curious. What city do you dread going to?
What do I dread? I don't like SF.
Okay.
So I did a red eye back. I flew in, landed at 1. I flew out at 10.
Yeah. I think I actually.
Because SF is great for what it is, which is like the tech mecca.
Yeah, builders there.
But like the empty streets, the restaurants closing at 9 or 10.
Yep.
The no party. Like, I'm a party guy.
Yep.
Like it's just tough for me. I don't like going hiking. Mm-hmm. Like I don't like SF becoming more LA-ish, where it's like, I live in Fremont, I live in Santa Clara, I live in Oakland. It's like I can't even see my friends when I go because they all live like 45 minutes away from each other, right? Which is the same in LA, which is why I don't like LA. I like small cities like Miami and Europe. Chicago's good. It's cold. Yeah. But most of my friends in Chicago, they live in River North, West Loop.
That's all the area. All the common areas. Yeah. Right. So what is the Harlem Capital? What is it going to look like in 5 or 10 years? What fund are you on right now, and which one are you going for next? What is that?
So we're on 2, raising 3. What does it look like? We have our 2030 goal, which is like $1 billion of AUM. Okay. By 2040, we want to invest in 1,000 founders. Jesus, we're at like 110, 120 now.
You're really going to speed it up by bigger funds, I guess.
Once you have bigger funds, you start stacking funds, right? You get into like year 15, you have 2, 3 funds. So it's not linear. The number matters less. If we end up at 800 founders, it doesn't matter, right? It's really about, are we setting goals that drive outlier outcomes? It's like we're asking our founders to do things that sound crazy. Mm-hmm. And when people say, hey, you want to invest in 1,000 founders in 20 years, it sounds crazy. Mm-hmm. It's like we want to be crazy because we want our founders, we want our founders to be crazy. Our internal thing is we want to be delusional. And we want founders who are delusional. Because being a founder is delusional.
As a VC, what can you be better at, or what can you get better at?
I think it's hard, right? As a VC, you don't know you're good until, unless you get a winner Instagram being bought by Facebook.
I don't mean for outcomes per se.
But I think that's where you're how do you, the biggest question for a VC is how do you change along the 10-year journey before you know you're good, right? And so Josh Kalbman, he always quotes Annie Duke, and you can't, outcomes, a good outcome doesn't mean you had a good input. A bad outcome doesn't mean you had a bad input. And that's the hardest thing to figure out.
Right. It could be disconnected.
Right? And so it's we've invested in some great founders who have messed up. So was that the wrong decision? Did the founder do something, on their path that changed outcome? We've invested in bad founders that have had good outcomes.
Well, here's a better question for you then. What do you think the percentages of luck in VC is?
Oh, it's super high.
Like 60, 70, 80, 90?
It's definitely more than 50.
Yeah.
I think it matters a lot. I think when it matters, impacts more luck going. If you have your first winner in the first 5 years of your career, I think you're much more. I think the hard part's going to be for our generation, for most of my friends who started investing in the last 5 years, we're in the worst venture, vintage the last 10, 15 years. It's your first 5 years, very few of my friends who are partners at Andreessen and Lightspeed have the clear winner. They thought they had it, and now they don't.
No, they don't.
And so now you're talking your clear winner is probably first 10 years, right? And that leads to a lot less surface area for luck, right? Versus if you started in 08 and then you invest in the 010 group of, Lyft and Uber and all the other companies, and you had more surface area of luck, it just becomes spiral. It doesn't mean you weren't a good investor, but that luck, it creates so much momentum. And we're starting to see that. We're now I've been doing this for 7, 8 years. You can start to see the flywheel effect. There is an advantage to time. Being a young, hungry investor is an advantage, but being an OG who's been around and you have friends in the space, I'm starting to see and understand what the advantages are to have backing repeat founders. Your friends are now partners. Your other friends are starting companies. You start to create your own moat because you have time and you like your network is beginning to become winners. And winners want, if you know winners and they want to be with you, that means you're a winner, and then more winners want to be with you.
What is your biggest learnings from the losers though? Like the ones that are just tanking, like what are you learning from them? What are they doing that other founders should be learning from them?
I'm going to like certain companies.
Yeah.
I don't like solo technical founders that much. Our best solo founders have been business founders.
Yeah.
Because the technical ones, they're too into the product. And this is like kind of into this is YC, and YC's all like technical founders.
Yeah.
I have not found that to be true.
They're very like product driven.
Yeah, and like they take forever to launch. Now
because it has to be perfect.
It has to be perfect. There are some technical founders who do get the sales side. I have some of those, they're great. But the ones that don't, so I look for I try to understand. I don't like solo technical founders pre-sales. So if you're a solo technical founder, I want to see you with some customers to know that you can actually sell.
Yeah.
Not like, hey, we're gonna go build a product and figure it out.
Right, but you're saying that, or I'm assuming that you're saying that also the dynamic between the duo of the sales founder and the tech
I love
founder is the
co-founders.
best.
Yeah, a lot of our best companies have been
Those two
one
together.
CEO, CTO.
And you can clearly tell who's who when you walk in the room.
It works. Yeah, you can. Even when they're co-founders and they don't have their title yet, you know who the CEO is.
Yeah, you can tell.
I just gave a term sheet for a company where they're co-founders and like you're the CEO.
It's that big guy energy.
Yeah, it's just very easy. Very easy. There's like other learnings from the losers. Markets matter. Like we've had some great founders get great traction, and when a market compresses, if you're in that Web3 era or consumer fintech or e-commerce, if you didn't happen to raise that $20 million Series A before the market correction, you're done. All the strategics have no multiples, they can't buy you.
Yep.
There's no investors giving you cash. Your customers are churning because the market's compressing, and you're done. So I think I underappreciated how much markets matter, which is why, as though as I am founder driven, I care about the market a lot now because I've seen incredible founders with real millions of revenue just get crushed because their entire market collapsed. So I think that is a lesson I underappreciate because I've heard for so long in venture, back the jockey. That is true, but the racetrack matters.
For sure. Not talking about due diligence, let's not go that far, but if a founder is pitching you, let's say you're in the first or second meeting, what are those 3 top metrics that you usually look at that are the most important?
First call is very fluid. It's I want to know your background.
How about second call then? Let's do second call. Second call, what is those 3 metrics?
By the second call, we probably did our pre-memo, which is 15, 20 pages, and we're trying to get into deeper questions.
Yeah.
And so we probably have we typically have top 10 questions.
Yeah.
Right now, obviously varies by company.
Yeah.
But you usually try okay, walk me deeper through your ICP, which is your initial customer profile. What are the attributes that make a great customer? I want to understand that you really know who you're targeting. Walk me through detailed go-to-market strategy, not we're
gonna go on social media.
We're
gonna buy ads.
I'm gonna go to conferences.
Yeah.
Okay, what conferences?
Yeah.
When are they? What's the budget?
Yeah.
Who's there? Why? Are you gonna do a booth? Are you gonna be on stage?
Yeah.
Are you gonna pay for it?
Better let them come to our events though.
Yeah, stuff like that. So go-to-market's important. And then if there's co-founders or team, then we'll start to dig into the team. Hey, how are your roles split? What are your what are your weaknesses? Who are you guys gonna hire? What are the strengths that you guys need to cover your weaknesses? So less model KPI focus and more just strategic team focus. And then usually the partner meeting, which is the third call, that's the hour and a half call. That's where we get into all the nitty gritty and the model and all the other metrics and stuff.
So speaking of metrics, I think if a founder is running a SaaS business in year 3 or 4, maybe around seed stage, if they have a burn less than 8%, that's absolutely amazing. Do you agree with that? Or what would you say that number should be at?
Less than 8%?
Yeah.
What do you mean 8%?
8%
of their revenue?
No, churn.
Oh, 8% churn.
Yeah.
On an annual or monthly basis?
Monthly.
That's high for enterprise.
Right.
That's more consumer. I don't do consumer.
Okay.
So for enterprise, on a logo basis, you should be above 90%. So 10% annually. So call it 1% monthly.
Okay.
From a dollar perspective, you should be above 100%. Your customers should be growing.
Okay.
Yeah, for a consumer or for a small business, you're anywhere between 3 and 6% monthly churn.
What about runways? When should a founder start raising?
At least 6 months before their cash out.
You think 6 months of runway?
But you should raise when you have momentum.
But what if they have revenue coming in too, though?
But I'm saying 6 months in whatever your burn is.
Okay.
With revenue.
Okay.
Early on, your revenue is irrelevant. If you're doing $30K a month, it doesn't matter. It doesn't impact your burn.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of founders they think that it will and it doesn't. You're doing 120K burn your revenue goes from 30 to 40, it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
So usually when we invest, we require whatever cash we give you. We look at your gross burn. I don't care about any of your revenue.
Yep.
You have to have at least 24 to 36 months.
And when is too early? When is it foolish to like start pitching too early? Go down the road show.
I mean, we do pre-rev. You mean for our companies that are going to Series A?
No, I mean like for founders to start pitching investors, depending on how much runway they have. Like, what is too early? Like, they shouldn't do it above
If you have momentum, it's never too early.
You think so?
It is.
So what if you raise?
I have a company right now that has 3 years of runway. We're going to go out in January because they 25x the business this year.
Jesus.
And like it's momentum, right? Like it's like, hey, like yeah, we could keep going. We have runway. Like we have an opportunity to raise $10-15 million. Like you take the money.
Why even do that if they might not need it? What if they're going to get acquired in 3 years?
Klaviyo went public, had $400 million of cash. They only ever spent whatever 2060. You don't know what market's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like you know, there's the like.
Yeah, but there's too much of it though, right?
There can be. But I think generally, if you ask the founders in 21, you know, we have a founder who raised $25 million Series A, and you're like, hey, would you do it again? Is your current business screwed from a valuation perspective? Yes. But are you still here 3 years later? Yeah. If you didn't raise that money, you wouldn't be here anymore, right? And so like, yeah, like you're probably over hedged, and you probably have to have a down round. But like you raise enough money where you can pivot, you can fire people, you can do whatever you gotta do, and you're here 3 years later and you're still building. That just wouldn't be the case. So I think you always rather have capital, which is why Klaviyo and a bunch of other companies who don't need it still raise. Because even at that stage, the growth stage, Series B, C, D, like you never know what's going to happen. Is it going to be COVID? Is it going to be a great financial recession? You always want to have a balance sheet, right, as a just in case. And if you can get a balance sheet for small dilution, you take it all day. Now it's different. Like I'm raising 20 million, I'm taking 40% dilution. Yeah, obviously if you don't need the money, I can do that. But if you don't need the money, you're raising 20 million, I don't need the money, you're probably going to get 10-15% dilution because I don't need the money. Mm-hmm. Right? So you're coming from a position of strength. Mm-hmm. And you rather do that now than like, hey, wait, or your growth slowed. 25x, next year you did 2x. Now it's not as interesting.
Right.
Now you can't raise.
And speaking of which, so like when the down round occurs, that's really bad for company morale, but you're saying that longevity though,
yeah, but you're around. You gotta survive.
Right.
I mean, it's so different for investors.
Sure.
Like a lot of investors raise too much money, but they're still around. And there was a recent chart in PitchBook that I think 30 to 40% of investors are no longer investing. So PitchBook looks at which investors have invested in the last 12 months. Right, and 40% of investors had not invested in the last 12 months.
Jeez.
Right, which kind of is showing you like what's going to happen.
Okay.
For a basis. And so yeah, the ones who raise too much, like you're still in business.
Right.
And hopefully you can get through this cycle. You can raise another fund. You can survive. Only 15% of funds get to fund 4.
Wow.
Right?
What was the percentage?
15 to 17. It's like 1 in 6. Right. So it's really hard. Most funds you raise 1, 2, and nobody ever hears them ever again.
Mm-hmm. And what's the difference between American and European waterfall?
Like the actual like returns. Mm-hmm. I mean, one's on a deal by deal versus
clumped up together, right?
But like everybody does American.
Right. Why was that a thing then for European though?
I have no idea. I've never invested in Europe.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, it's just a word. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, but like it is like European
LPs.
LPs. They want that. Like American LPs. Like it never really even came up in LP discussions.
How do you typically find LPs yourself?
You meet one person,
and they tell other people,
and you ask them, like you get them to invest. You say, "Hey, we're like sweet people."
Yep.
There's like everybody knows like the big endowments and the pension funds. That's the easy one. It's like the family offices, some of the foundations that are smaller. Those are harder. But yeah, LP to LP intro is who you get introduced to matters because that's how they perceive you.
Got it.
So like we may have access to somebody, but if it's like, oh, this is my friend. And he kind of knows this person, or he's a principal at the fund. Like, I want CIO to CIO. I want family office, like the founder to the founder of another family office. Like that, like we've just seen much higher success rate because now the person, when you walk in the room, they're perceiving you through the lens of the person who introduced you.
For sure.
Which just gives you a better footing.
Yep. Last question for you. What would you like to leave your legacy with? Like, what would you like to leave this world with when you're gone and your son is your age or whatever?
Hopefully I'm still around.
You'll still be kicking, I'm sure.
I mean...
But you get the question.
Yeah, I mean, I want to create the most minority millionaires of all time.
Okay. Who do you think is doing that really, really well right now? Or who's at the top?
Who's creating the most minority millionaires?
Yeah. You ever think about that? You aspire to do that. Who's leading right now?
I don't know. not enough.
I like to ask you questions to make you think.
Yeah, not enough. I mean, like the answer, like the ones I would think through would be like BET, you know, Robert Johnson, or I mean, for Detroit, the auto industry created a lot of black millionaires in Detroit for sure.
Didn't know that. Okay.
Detroit was so popular. Yeah, I mean, like obviously, like 70% of employees in NVIDIA are millionaires. There's not that many black people in NVIDIA, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the goal is like, can you create an NVIDIA founded by a person of color, where like then those people are all millionaires and people of color, and they go to their communities.
Right.
So yeah, minority millionaires. I want to create the next PayPal mafia to be people of color or women, because like what that group has done is created trillions of dollars of asset value, and I think people underestimate like when you have a founding group that creates this aura, and they can go out and do whatever they want because now you've been successful, and now you can like I mean they're all like it's just
big energy. Big energy,
like it's just incredible. So like that to be women or people of color, which is what Rapi's done for Latin America. Like I think that has not been done to date, and I want that coming to be our company.
What do you think that'll be?
When? I mean, it takes
dream
time.
is only hope
10
without
years.
Dream is only hope without a date.
Yeah, 10 years. I mean, it takes time, right? You want to build a multi-billion-dollar company in a decade.
Of course.
2035.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Put a date on it. 2035.
Vision board.
All right. So again, man, thank you for coming out today. I know you trekked a little bit from Miami to FTLD. Hopefully we'll be back one time in the future. But for now, this was Henri. And we had a great discussion. So if you missed it, got to replay it, start from the beginning. We'll be seeing the next episode of podcast. Do you have anything to tell anyone, or shout outs or plugs or anything like that?
No, Harlem.capital. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and around.
All right. Peace out. Episode 3 is over.